turning back.
Welcome to the Lost Boy Scouts podcast. Danny, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired tonight.
Yeah. It's been a good couple days of training.
Yeah,
You've
for
been
sure.
Putting in a lot of extra work at the gym, the academy today.
Yeah, it was kids classes today.
Kids classes are always wild.
Kids classes are so tough, man. Like, I go there, I get up early, go to work all day, and I'm training usually all day, training the new air traffic controller, and then I go to work, then I go to the academy. And I have the kids classes. The first class is like always the hardest because it's the brand new kids. They're like 4 to, I'd probably say 8, maybe 8. Yeah. Sometimes a little bit older than that, but for the most part, it's like really young. But the crazy thing is the 2 youngest kids are 4 and 5, and they're probably the better of the athletes. Like, when I see them, I'm like, man, these kids are legitimate athletes. Like, they can do a lot of things that even some of the uncoordinated 8-year-olds can't do. And when you see their parents, you're like, well, that makes sense. Like, their parents are probably pretty athletic. They probably were very high athletic IQ in younger ages. And you never know in Park City. You never know if you're talking to an Olympic athlete or just a random person, right? Because we have so many walks of life in Park City, but a lot of times there are some high level athletes. It's
always interesting too. I mean, I think this valley does kind of attract people who are more, they're outdoors more, they're hikers, they're bikers, they tend to be more athletic, right? And they're more physically aware.
Right.
Where I think in like the city, you probably just have more of a melting pot.
Yeah, melting pot
of personalities and body types.
Today I had to get after a kid today, and I try not to. Like, Tristan and Nick and those guys, they're you have to be pretty strict you have to be really strict in the classes because like kids can get hurt. We do throw, we do things that, if they're not careful, they'll get hurt. Right. Mm-hmm. And I just had this one kid and he just sometimes, he'll just challenge me like, everything I say, well, why are we doing it like that? How come you said that? No, I don't want to do it like that. And today I was like, you know what, buddy? I usually put him in a leadership role because then he kind of takes that leadership role. And I was like, for a little while, you're not going to be a leader because I don't know if you're giving the right skills to these kids, if you're teaching that. And man, he got mad at me. He wouldn't do anything that I told him to do. He was just, his face, he just sat there like this.
Did you kick him off the mat?
No. And I was like, Karsten, when you show me your leadership qualities like you usually do, I'm going to give them back to you. But until then, nobody's going to give you leadership. And I'm going to call the other coaches and I'm going to remind them that you were not allowed a leader. And he got more mad. But then after a while, he kind of like mellowed out because I think after a while, they just kind of mellow out. They get over it really fast, right? Like, like kids don't hold on to grudges. No. They move on really fast. Yeah. He moved on. And at the end of the class, we talked a little bit and I explained to him, where I come from and those kind of things. And it's hard because like, sometimes with kids, you don't know if you're dealing with a behavioral issue or if it's just their personality or, maybe he's a little immature. Yeah. And so they wear me out. And then the next class after the little tiny kids class is the advanced kids classes. And those kids have tons of energy. Oh yeah. And they come in and they are jumping all over the place. And I've got to remember, like I've got to amp up my energy because if not, then then I'm kind of boring.
They can feel it.
Yeah. And they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So I have to amp my energy up and then before you know it, the class is over and I'm like, I haven't even been home since 4:00 in the morning and I get home, 6:30 at night and
you're just gassed.
Tired, man. Yeah. Tired. So let's I'm gonna do some of these. You want to do some?
You're gonna do a little smell and salt. Yeah, no, I think we'll go ahead, take a whiff. I think it's the same.
Ooh. I did it again. The last time we did
it's like wafting in the area.
The last time we didn't do it, and I told myself, I'm like, man, don't be a
well, you opened the can, and it was like you had like off gassed out here.
And I was thinking, it's gonna make me feel better just doing it, But yeah, and My family's gone.
Everybody's traveling. So
everybody's traveling.
Batching it this weekend. Welcome to my life.
Yeah, I know. I was like, gosh, I told Misty, I was like, I don't do well in a quiet house. Like go home and I'm like, man, I feel bad for Tyler because we had a conversation about that over the week. Just struggling with that, right?
Oh, absolutely. It is interesting after the kids leave, like how my energy just dumps. And I honestly think, the changing of the seasons, there's something to it, right? It gets really gray here in Utah. Really gray. And I don't mind the snow. I don't mind the rain. I do mind the gray. Like in Colorado where I grew up, we'd get the snow, we'd get the rain, but we would have, snow, and then we'd have like a bluebird day.
Yeah.
And the sun would be out, and you wouldn't feel kind of like this heaviness, this gray.
Yeah, it does get gray here.
And it's the season of the sticks, as they say.
And we live in the mountains.
Yeah.
And if you go into the valley of Salt Lake because of the inversion, you may not see the sun or the sky.
Oh yeah.
Through the month of end of January all the way through February.
Yeah.
You may not see it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird for my work because where the air traffic control tower is, like I'll be driving to work and it's cloudy, like super cloudy, super foggy. And all I have to do is go up 26 flights of stairs and it's blue skies.
Yeah.
Because of the inversion. And it's like a thick blanket of just heaviness.
Yeah.
Right? Like gunk.
Yeah. I remember seeing it like too, as you drive down the canyon, you can kind of see it just like sitting there like a thick layer of cake frosting.
Yeah. It's
over the city. And you're just like, it's like you're descending down into it. And you're just like, here I go. Take a deep breath.
Yeah. And some days they'll tell you not to go and exercise and not to do anything outside because the air is so gross.
Yeah.
I've heard that like at times that it's more the air, and I may be saying this wrong, but it's more like toxic to you than like in the Asian countries where there actually is pollution, because all it is there's air trapped. And so, like, because of where we sit on the Great Salt Lake, right, there's air trapped, and it is like
just kind of traps all that stuff,
and it can make you sick.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have lung and stuff issues.
Yeah, and we're up here, and you can, if you don't go down into the valley for like a week, you'll forget, right?
Oh yeah.
But like you said, it's still kind of gray and kind of like grumpy up here. Like, and it's probably because like we see Mount Temp and it's white and like there's no relief from the snow.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is just kind of like the overcast gray skies. Like it's just the clouds move through. We get it, from Southern California, and then it also blows in from the east as well. So there's days where it's just gray and cloudy and overcast. Yeah. Right. And it eats at you.
It causes you grumpy.
You gotta do a little spring cleaning. And yes, I definitely was hit. Still kind of going through the seasons of grief and, everything that gets compounded, and you never know when it's going to hit you. I truly believe our bodies are not meant to, deal with that all at once. And so, it comes and goes. Yeah. So you just got to roll with it and, call your friends when you need help. And,
right.
Have some conversations and let it happen. Let it happen. And yeah.
And so the kids are gone now this week. Yep. And you had them a lot though too. Also, like
I had them most of February. Most of February they were
with everything that was going on. Yeah. And I'm used to seeing my family, and so with them being gone for just a day, I'm like, whoa, But they're having fun. Misty went to a vintage show with her friends to St. George, and then Tristan went to the nationals, to the wrestling finals.
Spoiled brat.
Gosh, man,
spoiled brat.
I told Tyler and my wife today, I said, I've failed in life. I failed in life this time because, it would have been a plane ticket. We had a place to stay, and it is by far the best sporting event that I've ever been to.
Wow.
That I've ever been to.
Yeah.
The energy, the intensity, and granted, I'm a huge, collegiate wrestling fan in itself, but you're walking around like legends of the sport, and they're literally walking around because, wrestling is such a small community. So, if like a famous wrestler, somebody that knows him, so you'll probably be able to meet him. Here in Heber, we have Kel Sanderson, he's my age.
Okay.
We graduated the same year. We know of the same people. Like I'm really good friends with his dad and his mom, you know, and so you just know like legends of the sport, like literal legends of the sport.
Put it in perspective for us, because is it collegiate? Is collegiate level the highest level, or is there like Olympics, or is Olympics. There? I mean, obviously the Olympics is it highest. Kind of the same, or is it adapted?
Way different. Way different.
It's just on style, right?
Style, yeah. So collegiate wrestling is what you would do in your high school.
Same kind.
It's called folk style, but we say collegiate just because it's a college style.
Yeah.
And collegiate, the highest that's the highest. If you were a high school wrestler, you're probably most likely your highest level would be college wrestling. Mm-hmm. And then if you were a really, really, really talented wrestler, you may make it onto the Olympic, just like maybe some of the practice squads.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, one guy, one weight makes it into the Olympic.
Wow. The Olympic team.
To the Olympic team. One guy, one weight. That's it.
That's it.
So I think there's 6 weight classes. I may be wrong about that.
Wow.
They changed a lot. But we have women's wrestling now, which is itself amazing. And but for nationals, for like Division I nationals, it's like they staff a weight for each weight. One guy can make it, but not from every team. One guy in the Big Tens, and then they have like draw-ins from the Big Tens, because the Big Ten is the premier league or the premier conference for wrestling. But like I know some of the kids, like my kids have wrestled some of the kids that are in there. And so that's kind of fun to watch. But when you go there, it is just the energy and the buzz and everything that's going on in there. And there's so many storylines that are happening. You get sucked in and drawn into it. Right.
Yeah.
And then, like I tell people all the time, they all look like me. They're short with crazy ears and, like just this, everybody's about the same height, because wrestlers are not very tall in most instances. I mean, there's some ginormous wrestlers for sure, because you can go up to 285, but for the most part, everybody just has cauliflower ears, and it's a very family oriented sport. So like dads and grandsons and great grandfathers and all of the kids go there it's a family event. So it's got that feel, and luckily Tristan was able to go, and he sent me some pictures today of their seats, and I was like, man, nice. Killer seats.
So cool. Yeah, what a really good opportunity for him.
It was good. It was fun. Yeah, he coached wrestling for the Park City wrestling team, and just happens that the head coach's daughter wrestles for Lehigh, and then he's part of the New York Athletic Club, and so he's got lots of connections. Did hear that by the time this comes out, will have known if they got floor seats for the finals, which would be
amazing.
Amazing.
It's like Super Bowl tickets.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is Super Bowl tickets. Yeah, for especially for like guys like us, like we're this happens once a year and this is it,
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting. Both wrestling. I always wanted to do wrestling growing up. I had a couple uncles that wrestled. One of them wrestled collegiately here at BYU.
Oh yeah.
And I think for just briefly before he realized academics where he needed to focus, and it's interesting with both wrestling and jiu-jitsu what a personal sport it is, right? Yeah. You're on a team for sure, and team points matters, but like you really have to learn discipline to
for sure
the individual sport. I grew up playing lacrosse, which is a team sport, and I think I've mentioned this before, that like when you compete, you can kind of if you're a good player, you win and lose as a team, right? And if you're a good team, you win and lose as a team. You understand what everybody's role is, but there's a lot of times where you can hide your poor performance behind.
Yeah, I agree.
Behind players that are better. And I'm watching this Wasatch lacrosse team here in town that I coached. We've got the first kid to ever go Division I, and I'm just seeing that there's like, everybody's looking at him for what to do. And he's like, I'm trying, guys, but I need you all to pull your weight.
Yeah.
I'm trying really hard, and bless his heart, he's an amazing player. He's an amazing mentor,
right,
to the rest of his teammates. But I struggle to see him and watch him and know he's put in the work.
Right.
He's the type of kid that has put in the work. He's gone to the extra practices. He's gone, and not everybody else is playing up to that level.
Yeah.
He's done so much to develop his talent to get to that Division I level. When I was growing up playing lacrosse, it was such a new sport that college lacrosse was it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's grown so much as a sport now that more and more colleges actually have the sport. It used to be just pretty much your Ivy League schools,
Yeah, I remember
right?
that.
Back east, all the Ivy League schools and, back east schools had lacrosse. And then it started growing, and now there's professional and semi-professional indoor leagues and stuff like that make it, a little bit closer to hockey. But again, if you don't put in the work individually, you can hide your performance. And that's why I think a lot of people, and that's probably true with football or basketball, why those people that really put in the work go the furthest.
Yeah. And with those team sports, it is a, each person has their role. Each person has their job to do, right?
Yeah.
And in wrestling, a lot of stuff happens in the practice room. That's where everything really goes down, the practice room. And you have to go to, you have to do spring stuff. You have to do fall stuff. You have to do winter stuff. You have to, and wrestling is a winter sport, but you literally are out there on the mat by yourself, right? Wrestling against another person who's done the same thing, who thinks he's done the same thing, right? Talent goes a long way.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me sometimes with, I didn't wrestle, and my boys were very talented. I played sports a lot when I was younger, but nothing like crazy, or never really high school sports. But, I see these like generations of wrestlers, and I often wonder if it's like genetic code that their dads wrestled and their granddads wrestled, and now all of a sudden they wrestle, because they have like a different aura about them. They carry themselves a little different on the mat, right? And sometimes you come across some outliers that are just, man, they're gifted. I've been around some really, really talented kids. But today when I was watching the wrestling, when I got home from jiu-jitsu, they were talking about, this kid is his dad is this guy, and he wrestled at the Olympics of this year, and each, there would be all these things, and I was like, man, that's insane. And then sometimes there's an outlier where they're like, yeah, that guy's dad didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
No family that wrestled. And so I always wonder, like, if when my kids have kids, because they both wrestle and they both believe in wrestling and jiu-jitsu, like if their kids are going to be like a little bit more talented, like in that mindset, because genetically coded, they might be a little bit better,
Dude, I'd love to dive a little bit more into like the mental weight of competition. Like, let's just talk about competition.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you've competed a lot in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I've competed a few times. I'd love to do more, but I think competition is interesting. It does weird things to us as men.
Yeah. Man, like competing, because you compete a lot, right? Like you compete in jobs, you can compete in relationships, you can compete in like just little tiny things, right?
Yeah.
And competition does do some weird things to your brain.
Right. So when you step onto the mat, and I'm just putting this like wrestling into perspective, like how much of the competition is versus yourself? Like what kind of mindset do you need to go into before you touch hands and get going?
So like as I've said before, I didn't wrestle in high school. I wrestled later on in life. I wrestled at Veterans Nationals, is in Vegas. I did that. And I remember walking out on the mat and thinking, what in the hell am I about to do?
Yeah.
I had already fought MMA prior to that. So I wasn't like nervous for like getting hands on each other, but I was like, I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah.
I remember the first guy that I fought or that I wrestled, he smelled like smoke so bad. he was like super tattooed like me. Yeah. And when we tied up, I was like, oh man, he smells like smoke. Yeah, like an ashtray. Just had an ashtray. Yeah. Like he was like breathing really, really hard, and we ended up like going the full 3. You go 3 minutes, and then there's a break, and then 3 more minutes. So it's a 6-minute match. And the whole time I remember thinking like, this dude is so strong. He is so strong, but his like the ashtray smell was so strong in my mind, and it stuck out. And I remember thinking like, why did I like attach myself to that? But I was just like, I can remember that. Like I can remember his strength and what he smelled like. And I ended up losing by a lot, but I thought I was close. Like I thought it was really close. Like I thought we were close, and I was like, "Oh, I'm close. I think this is a close match." And I think he beat me like 7-0 or something.
Yeah. Okay. So going to your like second match, because I remember my first match, like I was very nervous for the takedown. Like we don't do a lot of stand-up stuff. My first time really competing individually, like growing up playing lacrosse, I played in some serious games. And again, you can kind of you can let your ego kind of hide your performance, your nerves. You can, if you're good and you've got a good mental routine going into it, visualization. I think a lot of pro athletes do like that visualization. Like you can help build your team. But when it's one-on-one, it's really you and the other person.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And you are kind of your own worst enemy.
Agreed.
At times. Because I remember my very last competition where it was my second match and I was gassed and I knew I was mentally beat before I was actually physically beat.
Yeah.
And that for me was more heartbreaking than the actual loss itself.
You can't come out of that.
No.
You can't pull yourself out of that.
It's tough. It is tough.
Yeah. I remember thinking going into my second match at National for wrestling that this is exactly like, because I had had coached my boys for so long and I had coached Braxton to a high level at that point. And I remember thinking like, man, this is exactly like the feeling that they have, because I kind of didn't want to go out there the second one. I didn't really want to go out there because my first match, I thought I had a really good chance against this guy. My second match, the dude was like a 4, 5, or 6 time Masters national champion.
Yeah.
And when he walked out there, I was like almost my breath was almost taken away by his confidence.
Yeah.
He was so confident.
Right.
Oh my gosh. He when we shook hands, I was like, this dude's going to kill me.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that. I was like, gosh, damn it. I hope he doesn't hurt me.
So yeah, that's the worst. And like, can you imagine taking that same mindset into like a job application?
There's no way.
You know what I mean? Like if you go into it defeated, you're already like, what is it? What is the saying? I think it's Tony Robbins who says like, where your attention goes, so does your effort. Like like something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And really that's talking about mindset, right?
100%. Yeah. The dude, I mean, I think it was 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I think we were on the mat. We shook hands. He took me down in 20 seconds. 20 seconds was what I lasted. But I remember getting off the mat and thinking I was defeated before.
Yeah.
I thought I just wanted to get out of that match because I was so like, well, I already lost my first one. This dude's going to tune me up. Yeah. And he did. But I didn't even really I don't know if I even had the opportunity to try.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, we shook hands and boom, it was over. And I remember thinking that was really, really fast.
Yeah.
And it was so fast. And I remember thinking the next time I compete, that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go in there like that. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to feel prepared. And then when I competed jiu-jitsu, I won 4 Utah state titles.
Yeah.
And then I won a bunch of grappling industries and a bunch of Naga championships in my white and blue. I didn't compete as much as in my purple belt as I would have liked to, only because like at this point, like competition, like competing like that is not part of my journey where that white, blue, I competed every tournament that I could. Every tournament. And I always told myself, like, I'm not ever going to feel the way that I felt that one time.
I think it's interesting too, being, I practice jiu-jitsu, right? Like for me, it's a practice.
Sure.
It's about, initially was about reconnecting with my own central nervous system, like to really understand what is a threat. To go into a competition, it was like, okay, I've rolled a bunch with the guys in our gym. And I remember professor saying, do you really have what it takes to break an arm? And I think we've had this conversation before, but like, I was like, I really wasn't sure, but I knew that the next level, like, the only other way to test this is to go get into a street fight. I'm not about to go get into a street fight. Right. So this is like another place where you amp up the intensity a little bit. You really kind of have to prepare yourself. It's not one of those things. And I think that's probably some of the mistakes I've made in my jiu-jitsu competition. My last competition, not so much. I did try to have like more of a focused regimen. Like I wanted to lose, hit a certain weight. Unfortunately, I didn't do it. So I ended up fighting up, which I now know that's not something I ever want to do again.
Sure.
I never want to do that again. It really wasn't fair to myself.
You're already accepting defeat in the weight.
Yeah.
Because you had tried really hard.
Yeah. And I mean, I was close. The other problem was there was no one at my weight class, at that lower weight class.
Agree.
So it was like, the day before the competition, I'm looking at and I'm like, I'm not going to fight anyone. So I can't go down even further. I can either go up or I can just drop out completely. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, I've already signed up. I've already put in the effort training. Let's go up. And they mopped the mat with me, right? Like they were physically bigger and stronger than me. And I feel like I did all right? Like I protected myself and, fought one bout to time, and the other bout, I was just so exhausted. I couldn't again mentally beat myself. Right. Like maybe if I was in a little bit mentally stronger place, I could have made the full 5 minutes. But once that doubt creeps in,
once it does, yeah. I think that's with everything. Like I think as soon as like there's a little sliver of like doubt, it starts to make your mind wander to a place that you can't quite get out of.
Yeah.
Which, in my career field, we have so many things going on at one time. Yeah. There's so much going on, right? And you have to like sometimes just pretend like what's going on.
Right.
You have to like if you have a sliver of doubt of like what's going on, your session is going to be really, really bad. Yeah. And you're going to walk away from there like, man, I just got my ass kicked. Same thing in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Same feeling in jiu-jitsu. I've not had another feeling where I like see line up, as we do the rotations, line up next to somebody that you're like, this is about to be the longest 3 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
And I can't stop it. I can't stop what's about to happen to me. And all I'm hoping is that I make it to the next round. And not only it does that happen, but it's probably worse for me because I'm like, now I'm pissed off at myself because I'm like, man, I kind of like willed that in myself. Other times I know across from me, that person feels the same way. Like I'm there, but like, man, I got Danny. This is going to be miserable. This is not going to be fun for 3 minutes, And that balance of like the sliver of like, how can you like stop it from happening? How can you like, how can you be prepared? How can you like prepare yourself for an interview or for, to ask a girl out or to struggle with some of the things that like that you yourself like have struggled with, like struggled with, right? And not throw in the towel and be like, shit, man, I don't want to be today. Today I'm going to just wallow.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to, the 5 minutes is up and the guy got my back and it sucks. But tomorrow I'm not going to let him have my back, but today, fuck it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's you've got to start recognizing, I think, the patterns of doubt.
Yeah.
Right. And I know the job market is incredibly difficult out there for a lot of men these days. Tech has been growing into a new generation of whatever it is. They overhired. You never can really trust what's being, said on the news. You can kind of only trust what you're hearing other people, your other past coworkers saying. And like, I remember applying for jobs and you make 100 applications to get 100 rejections. How do you keep positive?
How do you stay positive?
How do you stay positive in that time?
Man. Gosh. And I guess it would be like, seeing the long game.
Yeah.
Right. Not seeing the short game and like getting caught up in the short wins. Because you got to still have like some sort of win category that's going to help you like get through the day. But if you start to pile up those losses, man, that's it.
I think you got to look at where you're successful too and realize that you're like a multidimensional being, right? Like, hey, I 100 rejections. Cool. That's 100 people that lost out on me. They lost out on me.
Right.
Right. They didn't even take the opportunity. That's their fault. You know what I mean? You've got to start seeing the positive and just knowing that like the universe has got to have your back at some point. When you like, I love the book, The Alchemist. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's an incredible book, but there's there's a saying in the book that in The Alchemist, If you want something bad enough, the whole universe will conspire to give it to you.
Yeah.
And I truly have had to start to believe that, and I have to go back. And there's moments of weakness.
Sure.
And it's okay to have those, right? Give yourself some time. We've talked about this. Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month, right? And you've got to eventually find your way back.
Yeah, find your
way back.
Claw your way out of the bottom. Yeah. So you have that clutter. There's all that clutter of that you need to get rid of to get going in the right direction again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Failing isn't, there's all those things. Failure is not fatal,
right?
It's not.
It's not.
But failure does help you grow. Having struggles does give you the ability to be kind of elastic. Mm-hmm. As the struggles come, because we've talked about this, like struggles are going to come.
Yeah,
bad things are going to happen. If you're living in a cloud, you're living in a fairy tale land, if you think that bad things are not going to happen to you, they are. They're going to happen to you, and there's going to be some rough times, and there's going to be some things that just rock you to your core, that shake the shit out of you, right? And as a man, we're not always given tools to help deal with those things.
Right.
Matter of fact, sometimes I wonder if I'm even have the ability to help my own boys deal with like hardships.
Yeah.
Like some hardships,
yes.
Right? Like I can be a listening device. Like I can listen to them, but when I give them advice, I'm always like, was that really good advice? Shit, I don't know. Because I don't know if I'm in my own world sometimes, right? And my boys are like, they're men, and it's like, gosh, man, what if I'm not prepared to help them in their struggles? Like they're like really hard struggles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think for me, you cannot let those things, you cannot let the negative compound, like compounding interest, right? The power of compounding interest, right? When you compound interest on money, it grows. When you compound your focus on the defeat and the poor me, it turns into this victim mentality.
Sure.
And if I could impart anything to my younger self, to my younger sons, to my younger brothers that are out there, like ditch the victim mindset.
Sure.
You're not a victim. There's always you got tapped. I learned something, right?
Right.
I'm going up against, the biggest black belt in the gym. I hope I'm a fun role for him. When I roll with Nick and when I roll with Anthony or even Professor, I'm like, I just hope to provide them some form of entertainment. Sure. I know that it's going to be rough for me. I know I'm not going to get the position that I want, but hey, maybe I can help them increase their skills.
Yeah.
They can add a little finesse to their game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Avoiding that victim mentality is a big thing. Like, in any sense or in any chapter of your life, right? Because as soon as you become a victim of something, now you can play on that victimness, right?
Life is happening to you, not for you, right? Yeah. Like stay in that for you mindset. There's wisdom out there to be gained from even the losses.
Sure. I think that's so. For the longest time, that's why I liked wrestling so much. Like, that's why I liked my boys wrestling, was because it teaches you so much adversity.
Yeah,
like you have to really, really, really like wrestling. You have to really like wrestling to put yourself through wrestling. Yeah. You have to really enjoy it, because there is absolutely nothing fun about it. It's so funny when people are like, wrestling. People will be like, oh yeah, wrestling's not fun, and they're like, yeah, for sure, it's not fun. No. But what you gain from it, and then translate that to as an adult men, like it's not like we have wrestling clubs available, but jiu-jitsu does that for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
It teaches you so much adversity. It teaches you that there is no end. There's no end to the journey, and each little set piece, guard, bottom side, top side, mount, bottom mount. Each of those things have their own little branches that go a million different directions, and you will never find the bottom of it. Right. You'll never find the bottom because something else will open up, right? And what that does for you is it always keeps you engaged, right? And so in life, as men, as we start to go on and we see, like, what did sports do for us? Like, what did sports do for you? It taught you to stay engaged, to not only think about yourself, but to think about your team, which is your family.
Yeah.
And to not give up, right? To look for the next score, to look for the next position, to look for the next ability, right? And then if you put your children in sports or in something like that, then they'll learn adversity. They will learn adversity. They'll learn how to depend on themselves and to not give up. They're still going to have failures. And as long as you can not just pull the plug and be like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm moving on from this, then you're going to learn something from it. Yeah. And you'll be able to take that with you in each of those chapters of your life where you start to struggle, especially as a man, because we don't have outlets. We don't have things that we can turn to. And if you ask for help, sometimes it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And as a man, you're like, I'm not supposed to show that.
Yeah. Which I think is really unfortunate, right? Because we're human beings. And while I truly believe like you're not your feelings, that our feelings are really more guides, right? It's part of our central nervous system. If I'm feeling sad, mad, glad, happy, it's all just a message telling me, it's a means to an end, not the end all be all, right? Like you don't have to be those feelings, and we need to learn to connect with that side of ourselves rather than just hide it.
Yeah.
Rather than just hide it. I've spent plenty of years hiding my own feelings, hiding how I feel about things.
Yeah.
I also think too that there is something to be said about stoicism, right? And it may be difficult. It may be difficult to have, for example, I had my sister-in-law come over today, or my ex-sister-in-law. I don't know. I mean, we're still friends, but I don't know where my position in that family is, and I had to just say, okay, how do I handle this, right? Like, she obviously wanted to come over and send her condolences and share her experience with me, and I was I could have very easily ignored it. I did ignore it for a couple of weeks. And then finally I just had to tell myself, like, it's okay. I need to be part of her healing journey as well as mine. And I need to allow it to happen. I need to allow things to develop just naturally.
Right.
You just can't hide things forever, because what you resist, this week, if anything, what I've learned is what you resist persists.
For sure. Yeah. You especially with like who we are, and we've talked about like our childhoods, like we can't deny who we are. We can grow, we can become better versions of ourselves, but at the end of the day, we're still who we are.
Yeah.
Right. And like I told you before, like you're a super kind person, and if you go against that, like if you go against the grain of being kind, you're going to feel kind of abrasive.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel kind of like shitty.
Yeah.
You're going to come off shitty.
Yeah.
You're going to come off like not being yourself.
So I start asking myself, like, where is that coming from? What am I protecting? Mm-hmm. It's generally something in my ego.
Oh man.
I'm definitely protecting some sort of maybe a childhood wound,
mm-hmm.
And as I was in yoga on Tuesday, kind of suffering through some things in the heat and the stretching and the breathing, that I just finally fell into child's pose, and I'm like, what am I fighting against? What am I fighting against? And I realized that the battle that I was fighting was in my own head.
Wow.
Right. That it was my anger was self-inflicted.
Sure.
I was choosing a position where I was protecting something, and I had to ask myself, was it worth protecting?
Well, and you feel slighted, right? I mean, like you feel slighted, you feel cheated, you feel like there's things that you're missing out on.
Yeah.
There's things that you're like, man, this is not the life that I chose.
Sure.
This is not the person that I want to be right now.
Yeah.
But still, the person you are now is a better version of, who you were when you were really struggling.
Yeah.
When you were really struggling, when you were really lost, in a Tyler's version of lost.
Yeah.
Like a lost version where you're just living in your shadow and your pseudo self and you're just medicating however you can.
Right.
You're still a better version of that. And those feelings don't go away just because we want them to go away.
No.
They don't go away.
No. And at our age, I definitely think that we train our brains to, and starting at our nervous system, our nervous system is so well trained for a an uncomfortable hell, like if that's what we've trained it towards, it will pick that uncomfortable hell
all the time
over the peaceful unknown because we don't know, because that's where our brain feels safe.
Yeah, and you can function in that.
Yeah,
you're like,
know how to, there's some predictability.
Yeah, you're like, I can control this.
Yes,
control comes into that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like Keith always says, ego is not your amigo. It is not. It's definitely not your amigo. But the problem is, for me myself, is like, if sometimes I think like, if you see me as a weak version and I don't correct that, then I'm like, man, I need to. I'm going to show you.
Yes.
That don't take my kindness for weakness.
Yes.
Right. And I never feel good about that.
Right.
I never walk away going, I showed him.
Yeah.
I showed them. There's times when I'm like, you and I, we're not going to ever get along. And I know that, like, I'm cool with that. And so I'm not going to put myself in a position where I know the next step, the next level that I'll take it to. So I'm going to protect myself in that instance. That's not amigo. That's protection. But if I was to ever do that with like my wife or with my kids or something, like, I'm definitely not giving them my best version. But there's times when I'm like, with them, and then I walk away from it and I'm like, man, that did not feel good at all. And I have to go right back and be like, hey man, I'm really sorry. I was such a shit.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think that I've definitely been in times of self-protection where I've been acting out of ego in my previous relationship. And it was detrimental to the relationship, right? I didn't know, I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the guidance to say, hey, take a step back from your ego. Learn to recognize it. If you can learn to control your ego, if you can understand what it's saying, what is it really saying, right? Like and it's the basic, most primitive level, right? It's just an ape, right? You know what I mean? Like, it is literally just self-preservation,
for sure.
And if you can take a step back, take a deep breath, and realize, like, am I really in a competition here? Is there really a competition here? Or am I protecting something that is not true?
Yeah, like those feelings that are just like, it's made up.
Yeah.
Like, you made it up in your head and now you're protecting it like it's your own little egg.
Yes.
Like, you're like, man, this thing is so beautiful. I'm going to protect it, but it's like so fake.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you just need to let the moment unfold and be what it is, whatever it is, instead of like personalizing it or whatever you think it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you can step back, man, if I could go back in time and kick myself in the head a couple of times and we all wish we could.
For sure.
What I can do now is I can say, okay, yes, I recognize when my ego is showing up.
And if we wrap that back around to like with sports and stuff, like ego, like there's, you got to have a little sense of show offness.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have a little bit of like cockiness, like a little bit of air of arrogance, right? Like, you have to have that to get to high level competition.
It's going to get you back on the mat. It's going to put you back out there after a loss. Like,
but at some point, if it becomes bullshit, like, it's going to, like, you're going to see it. People are going to feel it and going to be like, you kind of turned me off, man. Like, I don't want to be around that. But, you have to have a little bit of like that ability of like, you know what, I can pick myself up.
Right.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I know where I'm at. Yeah. Right. And,
have you been around somebody that's been just completely arrogant? Like, you can tell
a ton,
and that's when I see my ego starting to kick in. Like, I kind of want to test this person. Yeah. I kind of want to test this person. And I realize now I'm acting from ego, right? He's pulled me into
his world.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times that's happened to me where I'm like, damn it. Yeah. I got sucked into that situation. But there's other times when I'm like, I'm okay with that. That person's rubbed me the wrong way. I get along with most people, but if I don't, I probably don't. Yeah. I probably do not find, if I don't get along with you, I probably don't find a reason to get along with you. And I don't look for it. If I find some like genuineness in you, I'll probably find something to like mesh with. But if I don't, I probably won't. I probably won't even try to. And I know that about myself.
Yeah.
I always tell people yeah, me and that guy would not hang out outside of this environment because I know what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would test him.
Yeah.
I would test him, test him to see what would happen.
Yeah.
But not that I want to do that or that I just know that about myself.
But I mean, it comes back to that competition, right? Like if we distill down all the bullshit of modern society, we're nothing but a bunch of hunters and gatherers, right? Yeah. And that's what I loved, like going back to those Indian books that we read, right? Like if a tribe wanted something and it was bigger and stronger, it would just go take it, right? And like we have to realize, like there is we've learned a high level of malevolence. Right. Yeah. Like we can, and Jordan Peterson always talks about this, like knowing the true darkness that you're capable of.
Oh, yeah. The violence that you can get to.
Yeah. Know it. Because once you know it, then you can become more benevolent to those around you. Right. And I think that's what's interesting when we're seeing kind of this clash between the sexes right here. We've got the super toxic masculine and I think on the other side of this, I'm not going to gain a lot of friends, but there's a lot of feminism that is the polar, like on the other end of the pole. Yeah. And it's just as toxic. Yeah. Right. And we have fallen out of harmony ourselves just because of this is where society has pushed us. It's pushed us into competition. It's told us that, the way we are valued is based on the way we look or how intelligent we are, or the number of zeros in our bank account. Right. And we have to take a step back from all of that external noise. And we have to man in. Yeah. We have to man in and say what's true and what really matters. Yeah. At the end of the day, what really matters.
And we each have our roles, right? Like, I mean, we have our roles. Like I cannot take on the role of my wife. Right. I cannot take on the role of my wife. I tell her, I mean, like we both know that. And she cannot take the role. She cannot take on the role of me. Yeah. And while I grew up in a single mother household, my mom and I have this conversation on a regular basis. Like she cannot be my father. She cannot. She does not have that ability. And I've always told her, like, don't ever take that role as a man or like tell me how I should be as a man because like I'll fight back with her. And we've had some we have really good dialogue. We have really good disagreements a lot of times, but it's like, I know my role. I've worked really hard to be who I am, but I'm not going to take on the role of my wife. Yeah. I'm not.
I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, I think you start asking yourselves, right? Like originally marriage was out of convenience and survival. Sure. Right. Like we partner up because we each brought something, the man's ability to provide, the woman's ability to caretake. Like, what does that mean now anymore when we live in a society where most everyone is in a dual income family at some point, right? Like you have to almost, to live in this valley, you almost have to have two incomes coming in. I mean, there's a lot of places where that's not always the case, but I'm talking like at a median level, right? At a median level, I'm willing to bet that 75 to 85% of the families in this area are dual income households.
I would agree with you.
So how do you find that balance when the woman is having to go out of the home, earn an income? Is it really her place to be in the home? I honestly, I don't know. This was a conversation I'd have all the time. Is like, what are these roles? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation for another night. Yeah. Another podcast.
Because man, I listened to a podcast today that this is along these lines, and I was like, man, this is an interesting dialogue. It was a very interesting dialogue, and I think it is a conversation for another day because if ego would definitely get involved. Yeah, both sides, ego would get involved, and I think you need a good, solid understanding of who you are as a person. Yeah. What your expectations are of the people around you. Yeah. Right. And the fact that like we are and we will, if we're not careful, just be apes, like you said. Yeah. And then in that sense, like, man, then it could get kind of really squirrely. Yeah. With situations. Yeah. Right. Because ego can really become an ugly an ugly thing if you're not careful.
I guess this goes back to tie it back to competition before we wrap up for the evening, and like, who are you really in competition with? You know, in the marketplace, you're going to be in competition with whoever else is competing with that job. And that's okay. You have to realize that you bring a unique talent, and you have to have pride in your unique talent, whatever it is. And there may be a lot of people that have kind of that punch on their card, right? You know, there's probably a lot of developers out there that write a certain level of code and they're good at it. And you're just as good at it, right? Like, there's going to be that, but you also have to believe that there's an abundance of opportunity.
Agreed.
You first and foremost cannot lose sight that there's going to be an abundance of opportunity,
and learn how to market yourself accordingly.
Yeah.
Right. Sell yourself accordingly, not like pimp yourself out, but sell yourself accordingly, like sell your skill sets.
Yeah.
And that in itself, find the right people around you that don't gas you up, don't gas your ego, but keep you in check with helping you and correcting you and checks and balances with you. Right. And then with your family, always remember that, like, what your role is in that version of your life, your family. What is your role, and take that role seriously, you know, and teach. That's a huge thing. Teach skill set.
Oh yeah.
Teach skill set, not force, not force feed somebody, but teach them a skill set. And I bet you will feel so proud of yourself.
Yeah.
That's why I love teaching classes at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy, because if you take a tiny sliver of what I teach you and apply it to your game, then I feel like I'm giving back, and it's only going to help me get better.
Right.
You know,
I love going to your kids' classes. You do an amazing job.
Thank you.
You do an amazing job. And I think it's true. You've got to teach your children, and you've got to teach those whom are in your sphere of influence, and you've got to learn. You've got to be willing to learn too. Super interesting conversation tonight, Danny. Appreciate it. Fun. Competition is good. In the right scenario.
Find it. Seek it out.
Yeah.
Seek out competition. Seek out something that will challenge you to the level of like pushing you to your best.
Right.
The best version of yourself. I really am proud of your eyes, the way that you're like, I can see that you're kind of your color's coming back a little bit. Kudos, man. Like, honestly, because I know the last month has not been nice to you, and hasn't been kind at all.
No, 2024 has not been the year that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, but it's going to get better, man.
Yeah, no, Nick made it home this week too. So, you know, in a little bit different form than we're used to, but he's home, and we're excited to continue to celebrate his life here in the future. And so, yes, it's all kind of, seasons are changing.
They are.
Seasons are changing, and
it's going to get green here soon.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got belt test on Saturday?
Belt test Saturday, man. We got some, we've got some really, really cool blue belts testing from our academy.
I know.
I am excited. We're going to get another female blue belt, Tashana. Shout out to Shauna. She listens to us. I know we're going to have her on the podcast soon.
Yes.
Her story, her energy and her vibe, her family's vibe, Matt, Tashana, and Hazel, the family themselves, they amazing family. But she's testing and getting another. Did you kick yourself?
I'm like cramping up. We did throws yesterday, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the flow.
No, I understand.
I'm like. I'm super disappointed. I'm going to miss her specifically. She's such a pillar in the academy.
Huge.
I love just training with her and like what she brings, her knowledge and just
That's what I always tell her is like
amazing.
She definitely brings a coolness to the academy, and she's a big part of the academy. So we're really excited for her. And then. Man, we have the summer camp. The summer camp is starting to develop. We've got fights coming out. The fight that was announced yesterday is Kim, Purple Belt Kim. Stoked for her.
Yeah.
She's competing against, I can't remember her name, but she comes from back east. She's tough.
Cool.
She was at the Big Frog this year, and I didn't actually get to train with her, but I watched her train, and she's tough. She's really tough. But Kim's been putting in a ton of work lately.
Yeah.
I've been training with her a lot on Friday afternoons, and every time we train, she tries to kill me.
Oh, I love it.
And she is awesome.
Another one of those, like I see her do the kids classes. I sat in on one of her kids classes, and
oh yeah, she does do a good job.
She does a great job.
She hands out candy at the end.
Yeah. Oh, she had a mom walk on with her boots on, and I thought that mom was going to lose her arm.
Kim probably tuned her up.
Yeah. Kim was going to tune her up.
Yeah, so we have that going on, and summer's around the corner. So I got the bus out last weekend. I was stoked.
Yes,
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
what you got going on? You got lacrosse.
Nothing.
You guys are kind of like in lacrosse season.
Kind of lacrosse season, and I've gotten to a point now where I've got kids at every level. The first group I've really started coaching as young as like 4th and 5th grade. They're now freshmen, sophomore in high school.
Wow.
So I'm going to a lot more of the games, even though I'm not coaching as much anymore, and I'm just trying to show support for the community. Shout out to the Wasatch Wasp lacrosse games. If you're in the neighborhood, go check it out. It's going to be a growth season for them, and proud of all the hard work that those young men have put in to get to the level that they're at.
Good for them.
Be out there supporting them. Yeah, just ready for that summer weather.
I know. Bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It on.
Thanks, man.
All right. Hey, thank you. Cheers everybody.
Yep,
thank you.
See you guys.
Rise up, no turning back.